these things could be little stepping stones that one, get you out of the house and talking to people, make a little income, but also help you explore something that just might not be temporary, might lead to something bigger and better.
Hey, Nicole, what do you get when a former corporate CEO and a do-gooding executive walk into a recording studio?
Well, Erin, nothing, because the two of us are usually on my couch or Zoom, because wine.
You get a podcast created for Gen X women who are bought into the corporate world, but fed up with the BS.
I know, it's how to thrive the 9 to 5 or 6 or 7.
It's career therapy, it's comedy, it's definitely full-on authenticity. Basically, we give you tangible strategies to rise in your career without compromising everything else.
Because work doesn't have to suck.
Hey there, welcome back to the Because Work Doesn't Have to Suck podcast, where we help Gen X-ish female leaders who should be at the top of their game, but just don't feel like it. And this is Erin. I'm the former corporate CEO turned authentic leadership expert. Half of the show, Nicole's doing her real job, real work today. And instead, I am sitting in my closet where I sometimes do to get intimate and get really good acoustics, just to talk to you mano a mano about something on my heart. This is usually something that pops up that I just can't keep in and want to talk to you about right away. And today I'm going to talk about the 5 things that I want you to avoid if you've just been laid off. So maybe this episode isn't for you. Maybe you haven't just been laid off, although I think you'll find most of these tips very, very helpful for you, not just to prepare if that were to happen, but things that you can do proactively. But also if you have a friend who's been recently affected, I know that especially in the industry I used to be in, which was healthcare, there just seems to be kind of a tsunami. But share this episode with them. And it could be, one of those tangible things when you feel helpless that you could help them do. So here's what we're going to talk about, the 5 things that I want you to avoid, and then what to do instead. And those are, the first thing is assuming the worst. So we'll talk about this concept of negativity bias, how it's just natural, it's okay. I call it the exorcism, but then how you can gain your footing and clarity, some tangible things. Number 2, the second thing to avoid, not taking a breather. And I know most people don't want to hear this, but we'll talk about this age-old concern, first of all, of the resume gap, which is complete BS, but we'll talk through that. But also the real tangible positive things that come out of quote unquote breathers. The third thing is to avoid spending too much time on your resume. Seriously. I know you probably have outplacement services that have you knee deep in it, but instead I want to talk about really the 80-20 rule on your resume and the things that you really should be doing on LinkedIn. And I'm not talking about just updating your profile. That's table stakes. There are some very strategic things that you can do to leverage LinkedIn. And then the fourth thing to avoid, holding it in. So we'll talk about the power of your network, which, you know this. I'm not going to just tell you that's where you get the best jobs, but I'm going to talk about the specific things that you're probably doing wrong with your network and how you can tighten those up to maximize the help that you can get from your peeps. And then the fifth thing to avoid is not trying something new. You have this gift of time, and I will give you some ideas and most importantly, probably some permission to do some things that you probably have been yearning to do, or you think are silly to do, or maybe even embarrassed to do. But I'll talk about the power of those both internally, but in terms of, getting your next sort of corporate 9-to-5 job. So those are things that resonate for you or maybe a friend, pass it along. I will also say the last thing, please, if you listen to this episode for all of these things, you're also going to want to listen for the promotion that we have at the end of the show, which will lead you to the chance to win a free 1-hour coaching session with me, which I'm going to be honest, is not cheap. I don't do a lot of career coaching anymore, but I have a real passion for it. And so want to give away a free session with me. And I'll tell you about that at the end. All right. Without further ado, back to me. Okay, so let's get down to it. But before we talk about and further dive into these 5 things to avoid, I just want to say for the listener, for you, whether you've recently been laid off or quite frankly, you're working in an environment where you are just burnt out. Maybe you were even in one of those companies and you went from a team of 5 down to you. Know that I hear you and I feel you. And it is your challenges and your struggles that drive this podcast. We are 100% focused on helping you, that 40 or 50-year-old who has been doing this for way too long and really should be at the top of your game, but maybe you're at the top of your level, but you're just not feeling like it. And so I hope that you're enjoying the podcast and the guests and the tips and finding ways to do things differently so that you can not just have a big career, but have it without the burnout and the angst and feeling like you're compromising everything else. So just my passion play. But without further ado, I want to talk through these 5 things that I outlined in the intro and just give a little bit more actionable things behind it, right? Not just a don't do this, but I do that. So the first thing that I mentioned was avoid assuming the worst. I think the first thing for you to know is it's totally normal. It's totally normal for you in the hours, the days, the weeks to feel down and stressed. And there's something actually called negative bias. Our human brain is wired to give more weight to those negative experiences or interactions or the ones that we perceive are going to be there. It's like anytime you've gotten a new software update or a new, I hate to say it, probably a new org chart, might not be the best example, but anytime you've had major change in your life, if you go back and re-examine it, what happens is you always find the things you hate first. You do. I do. I remember talking to my team about it. That's what our customers are going to do. Anytime we roll out something new, even if overall it's good, first they're going to go to, well, it doesn't have this button anymore. Well, we're not responsible for this anymore. And I really like doing that. Know that that's totally normal. It's about the speed in which, though, you can switch gears. It's about recognizing that and understanding that, like you've heard probably a million times, this probably didn't happen to you. It probably happened for you. But know that it's okay to have, I call it the exorcism. So whatever you need to do, get it out, rant with friends, write it down, talk to others, see a therapist, whatever, get it out because you can't move on until you get it out. But the faster you can get that negativity and that fear out, the quicker you'll be able to turn around and take action, because at the end of the day, you control your destiny. The second thing I would say on this is, because we mostly, talk to people that are not new in your career, like you've been around for 15, 20, 25 years, maybe longer. And as a former actuarial person, I will tell you, you have credible data. You have credible data that says if you've largely been successful, if you've avoided, I hate to be flippant about this, but you've avoided being sort of homeless and without any kind of money, but more importantly, that you've always bounced back, you've found great jobs, maybe they weren't perfect, but you've had success, then that credible data is going to bring you forward. You are at a point in your career where the past will predict the future. So know that. And then the last thing, which is actually really tangible, without giving you the details on how to do it because everybody's different, but this is so important. Run the numbers. Run the numbers. That helps you understand where your impact is financially. So often, especially in the corporate world, we've been conditioned to this bi-weekly addiction to money coming into our account, that we assume that as soon as it doesn't, we're just going to spiral. We're not going to be able to afford our bills. We're not going to be able to go on vacation. We're just, trips to TJ Maxx are going to be cut off at the knees. But it's all a big black box. And a quick funny story, when I decided to retire from my corporate CEO position, I decided to retire back in 2018. I was yearning for something new. I didn't know what it was, which is going to be part of our lesson. I didn't know I was going to be doing what I'm doing now, but I was just ready. And so my last paycheck came through the end of 2018. Now, I was I was definitely the breadwinner, but we felt like, okay, we can make this work. There'll be a little bit of dip. We'll have to dip in our savings, and then you'll grow your, whatever you're going to do next, and we'll be fine. Well, the reason I was a breadwinner, especially, was because my husband works for the federal government. And what happened at the end of 2018 with the federal government, most of you probably don't remember this, but they had their longest shutdown in history. They didn't pay people for, I think it was at least 6 weeks. And it happened December, right before Christmas. So literally in almost the same exact time that I stopped having a paycheck come in, my husband did as well. So we went from hero to zero, literally in a flash. And you know what happened? Nothing. We were fine. We might have pulled a little out of our savings to hit our mortgage. In fact, I remember we helped out a younger colleague of his and his team so that he could afford rent. And we got through it. And it was the best thing that could have happened, because it gave us a glimpse into worst case scenario. And no, we couldn't have sustained that forever. But it helped us understand, after going for 20 some years with constant paychecks coming in, that we'd be okay. So for you, you need to understand what those numbers are. Instead of just assuming the worst, run the numbers. What are your monthly bills? Things like mortgage and utilities and daycare and things like that, versus what do you have? And then what do you have in savings? And I can't tell you how many people I talk to, especially a lot of you listening, you're actually, executives, and you're so scared of not having that money, but you don't understand that you will be okay. And in fact, you'll be more than okay as we talk through these things. So that's number one. Don't assume the worst. Do your exorcism, get it over, but then take tangible steps to really understand and quantify what this impact is on you financially. But then also think about the positives, and we're going to talk more about that. Okay, number two, second thing to avoid is not taking a breather. I mean, even you've heard this cliche, even your phone needs to be turned off from time to time. And I think when people think about the breather, they think about it in a couple of different buckets. One is the financial. So back to, run your numbers and understand that. But the second, and I hear this from people all the time, is the resume gap. What is going to be the perception of the resume gap that I will have as a result of this? Will I now be seen, what used to be a top performer, and now I'll be seen as, this loser that got laid off? And I am here to tell you passionately and prophetically, this is not the case. In fact, the resume gap has become almost something that people expect or is intriguing. I know somebody that took time off. She was both actually laid off, but her husband within a month had a severe medical event. And she actually put it right on her LinkedIn, full-time caregiver or something like that. And had, I don't want to say fun with it, because it was obviously a really tough time and he's doing great, but she didn't hide it. She called it out. And I will tell you that anybody hiring you in the future, first of all, very likely not only be okay with it, but be intrigued by it. Gives you an opportunity to talk about what you did, which we'll talk a little bit more about how you can fill that gap in different ways. But if they don't, if they're like, I cannot, hire this person, then you don't want to work there anyway. I just had a conversation earlier this week with a woman who, a former colleague, had reached out and just was thinking about what's next, and asked, sort of what were the top 3 things I had learned as I took this leap into something new. And if I hadn't given myself that space when I first retired, I actually thought I was either going to go run another small health care startup. I was talking to a lot of recruiters and companies about that. I also had this idea about starting an app that helped you manage your kids' crazy schedules and activities. And I was convinced I was solving a big problem, which there was. I just realized I wasn't the person to solve that, because I don't really love building stuff. And it wasn't until I had that breather where I, gave myself time to just write, draft blogs, not even putting them out there. Eventually I did, sitting in the bleachers of my son's hockey practice and typing away until all of a sudden I looked down, I had 37 pages. Or listening to podcasts. I will tell you that what I do now, I am a professional speaker, author, and leadership business coach. I didn't know it was a thing. I knew these things sort of existed separately, but I didn't know that there was really this industry, they kind of call it the personal branding industry, that wraps a bow around it, that actually has all kinds of education and classes and things that you can learn about how to create different business models and how they tie together, how the speaking and the books. I had no idea. I had no idea. I always say in corporate, we're so smart, but we're so stupid because we don't have the time. We, in our heads, think there's one business model for success. And it wasn't until I had that breather and that time just to click around and listen to different podcasts and explore rabbit holes. And I'll never forget the day I swear to God, I'm not making this up. I was sitting and was driving my car. I was actually just pulling up the hill outside of our house. So I was within meters of our house, and I had somehow found this podcast. It was called Youpreneur, and I found it through some another one, which is usually how you do it. And this really obnoxious British guy who was a little bit too much, but he was the first person that talked about this concept. He called it a youpreneur, but a personal brand. There's sort of these other nebulous sort of packages, but literally talked about this package of things. And I said out loud, I swear to God, I said out loud, that's exactly what I want to do. And I had a coach at the time, and I remember going back and telling her, I'm like, I found it. And that's what started me on my path. So you don't know what you don't know. And I will say, like, just explore, follow people, get jealous of people. This is good kind of jealousy. Like, get on LinkedIn or Instagram and follow what these people are doing and really dive into it, because if they're doing it, you can too. So that was number 2. Do not avoid taking a breather. Number 3, avoid spending too much time in your resume. Seriously. Look, I know you might have outplacement services. You might be working with some sort of career coach or resume service. There are some really good ones out there, but there are some really bad ones. And I will tell you that, in my opinion, because again, and we'll talk about this in number 4, your next best job is probably not coming through the HR sausage factory, as I call it. Read your resume, take a breath, read your resume. Like, read it like you're somebody else. Like, not like somebody who's looking for impressive stuff, but read it. And then tell me if you don't hurl, because I'd be really surprised. Instead, what I always teach people is just focus on that top paragraph. 80-20 rule. The top paragraph that summarizes, because remember, like, if you're sending this thing around, people looking at, that's all they have time to look at. They're going to make their decision in those first 10 seconds. And that top paragraph is the best place to stand out. And the couple of the tips that I give on that are: write it in first person. Write it in freaking first person. And then write something like, I have a superpower, I have a unique ability, and really talk about what is that juxtaposition between a couple of your skill sets that make you so unique. Everybody has them. Maybe it's that you're, highly analytical, but you're really good at telling stories to people that don't understand the numbers. Or maybe it's that you're in sales, but you, unlike most salespeople, you spent 20 years in operations. And so you don't sell anything that the team can't actually put into place. What is that superpower? And then lastly, what's in it for them? What's in it for the people looking at this? Because whoever's looking at this and needs to hire desperately needs help. They're in a pickle. They need somebody, whether they're already doing the work themselves, they don't have anybody, they're losing out on customers. They desperately need your help. So how does your unique ability or your superpower, how is that going to make their life that much better? Spend most of your time on that top paragraph. It's a marketing tool. Stand out, talk like a human, use authenticity, and really talk about that superpower and how it will help the person. The second is maximize LinkedIn. I'm telling you guys, this is where everything's happening. And it's not just about your profile, but I will say, when I help out people, and I know somebody that, has been laid off, and I think there's a great job at another place, and I know the hiring manager, I said, I don't pass around resumes. I may not have that person's email. I certainly don't want to constantly be attaching attachment. I shoot an email or a direct message. with their LinkedIn, period. End of story. That's what people are passing around. So you might have your resume, you might be sending out, but everybody else is probably just passing around a link to your LinkedIn. So your LinkedIn really needs to stand out. And we actually will link in the show notes. We've done some episodes both on resumes and LinkedIn that I didn't remember to pull up, but we'll link those in the show notes. So if you want to dive deeper into my philosophy and my tips, check out those episodes as well. But it's not just about your profile. It's also about engagement. So I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. LinkedIn is not social media. LinkedIn is a 24/7, 365 professional conference going on. And in a professional conference, you are talking to people and you're talking about business stuff, but you're also talking about personal stuff. You're making connections. You're building trust. You're standing out. If you're at a conference and do you just go sit in the corner in your sort of black pants and your black shirt with your glass of water and just watch people? No. Well, you might be doing that on LinkedIn and you need to stop. You need to engage. You need to get up off your seat. You need to talk to people like a human. And not just like if you're at a conference, would you go up and be like, somebody was a speaker, right? Great job! Exclamation point. Walk away. No, you'd say, that presentation was amazing. What you said about XYZ really changed my perspective. So you need to start thinking about engagement. So listen, this will totally blow your mind. What I want you to do is actually make a list of 20 to 30 sort of dream connections. And these dream connections aren't, Adam Grant with like 1.5 million followers. These are people that are maybe decision makers at this company you've always wanted to work at. Or maybe there's somebody that has the kind of job that you are dying to have. Or they are, good friends with hiring manager at a place, it has a job that you've been looking at. Make this list. And then what I want you to do is go to their profile. I actually want you to follow them. You could connect with them if you think that they would connect with you. But at minimum, follow them. And by the way, if you make a connection request to somebody and they don't accept it, it will automatically have you follow them. But then here's the other big tip. Don't just follow them. Don't just connect with them. Hit the bell on their profile. And what that bell does is it ensures that you get an alert every time that they post. Because what happens with all social media, including LinkedIn, which I said wasn't social media, but you know what I'm saying, is you only see like 10%. I'll get people like, oh my God, I haven't seen your post in a while. I'm like, well, that's probably because you're not engaging. Like if you see them, but then you don't like or comment, the algorithm says, well, I'm not going to serve up many of those posts because they didn't seem to dig it, right? But if this is somebody that you really want to get the attention of, if you ring the bell and you can set it to always see their posts, and then just set aside 30 minutes every day to go out to LinkedIn, engage in general, authentically and naturally with your network. But for those dream 20, look to see if they've had any notifications, go to their posts and engage thoughtfully, add value, connect them to somebody else. Like it's not even just, oh, I loved what you said in this article. Like I just had this, I do this for podcast guests. So I'm totally dying to get this one woman on. She's super authentic, but I don't know her. And so I just started by, we actually connected. She accepted my connection request. But instead of going to her and being like, hey, I want you to be on my show, I saw one of her posts and it was for her company. They're in the ad agency side of things. And she posted a video they did, and it was related to women's soccer and sort of promoting equal pay. And I have a good friend in my network who is a former U.S. women's national soccer player. If you didn't hear her interview, it's Joanna Lohman. We'll link to that as well. Instead of just commenting on it, I thought, oh, not only would Joanna love this TikTok video that they did that is around the same cause as she has, but I'm serving that woman, right? I'm giving her company a shout out by sending it to somebody that's relevant. I'm taking a step further. And it doesn't take much because most people are just going through the motions. So if you just a little more intention, with a little more thought. Pretend like you're talking to them at a conference where you're going to add in your personality, maybe a little bit of humor, but you're also going to serve them. Like, oh, who else could I connect them with? That is really the key for LinkedIn. And I will tell you, it isn't for you who's looking for a job. It isn't about, oh, I have to start posting and I have to become an influencer on LinkedIn. No, you just have to have a LinkedIn profile that doesn't suck, which again, we'll link in the show notes to help you do that, but also engage just a teeny bit better than other people, and amazing things will happen. And then the last thing, I did just hear about this new feature on LinkedIn that I thought I would tell you about. And I will also get this to Rachel to put in our show notes. Rachel's our podcast editor, if this is your first episode. And it is this new feature where you can link your skills. So it's always had something around skills, remember, and people can endorse you for those skills. But now you can add connections to it. I think you can add like examples and pictures. So let's say you're in the marketing area and you led this amazing campaigns. Instead of just saying, oh, one of my skills is marketing strategy, you could link to, an external website or asset that you have, so that recruiters and other people can actually have you stand out, because they're looking at a million profiles that say marketing strategy and some endorsements. But if you actually have tangible examples, that'll be just enough maybe to stand out and get recruited. Hey, Erin here. Look, I am so happy you're here listening to the Because Work Doesn't Have to Suck podcast. But I'm also guessing that some days it can be tough to get over here, and you may not always have the time to throw in your earbuds for half an hour or an hour. So if you also want career and leadership tips, inspiration, and quite frankly, professional pot stirring, the best bite-sized way to get that from me is to connect on LinkedIn. Almost daily, I share tips, inspiration, and humor to help you, maybe you're a less than authentic boss too, be more authentic at work. You can find me by searching my name. I'm literally the only Erin Hatzakostas in the world, or at least the online world. So if you can spell it, you can find me. Or we make it easy. You can scroll down to the show notes and click the link there. See you there. Number 4 thing to avoid doing is to not tell your network. Okay, yes, I know that was a double negative, but avoid holding it in. You might feel, let's be honest, some shame. This might be, for many people, the first time you've ever been laid off. And look, I have not been laid off. My husband has. We've been through it. I've been around so many people that have, and I've also been on the other side of it. I've been, unfortunately, part of that, having to lay people off. This is normal. This is common. In fact, I firmly believe that this world of hiring and firing is going to get really bad for the next couple of years. And then we're going to have literally a big bang, which is probably a whole nother podcast episode. But I think the big bang, that work is going to completely shift to, instead of it being like 90% full employment, I think it's going to shift to so much more freelance and fractional type work, where people are going to get sick of the firing and hiring, the employees are, and they're going to get sick of, well, they already are, of the BS, the red tape, the politics, the trainings, all the stuff that isn't actually work. And they're going to want to just do work, which is already happening today in the world, by the way. There's plenty of people. There's a huge explosion of what we call fractional work, which we're going to talk about on an upcoming episode. But it's also great for the employers, because they'll finally realize that they can actually get more done for less, or with more flexibility. So all that to say that what has happened to you, or what might happen to you, or what's happened to your friend or colleague is totally normal. Don't hold it in. But here's the thing. Don't just simply tell people, whether that's online on LinkedIn, or that's, in your, more private conversations. But here's the number one thing that you have to avoid. You can't be vague. You have to avoid being vague in your outreach to these colleagues. So as I said in the intro, and I've said it probably a bunch of times on this podcast, the best jobs do not come through the HR sausage factory. They come through your network. Period. End of story. I hate to say it. It's true. And if you say, well, that's not the case for me, here are some things that you need to do differently to make it the case for you. So the first thing is when you outreach, even if you've worked with this person, they were your boss or colleagues for 10 years, their ability to summarize why somebody should hire you is not that strong. It just isn't. They've got a million things going on. They got a million colleagues. So arm them first with your superpower, kind of probably very similar statement that you put at the top of your resume. Here's the thing I've realized, Sally, after 10 years doing this, my superpower is blah, 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 blah. Just give them that one sentence, right? So they can go out with passion and tell people. And then the second thing that you're probably doing wrong, and I want you to change, is when you go out to people, I want you to be really narrow and specific. A lot of times when you go out to people, it's like, hey, I was just laid off. I'm so depressed. I'm really looking for, again, that's all about you. And it shouldn't be about you. It should be about how you can help others do things. But, I'm looking for a job that really utilizes my marketing skills. I want a company that's blah, blah, blah. I'm hopeful, but I'll also take project management. It's just too much. When you go out to somebody, and you can tailor this, whether it's through a conversation, which is optimal, or even through an intro email. And then you can say, can we jump on a call for 20 minutes and just talk about it? I want you to just be really specific. Give them a job or a few jobs you're interested in. So I used to get this, especially when I was recently retired from Aetna, which became CVS, and they employ 300,000 people worldwide. And people would say, oh my God, I want to get into CVS. Can you help me? Do you have any connections? I do, clinical work. And I'm like, there's 8,000 people. And by the way, a lot of my connections at that time were really, really high level. And so they may not even be the right people that would hire that person. And I would always say to them, hey, go out and look at the jobs. And if you find one that you really, really are interested in, let me know. And I'll try to figure out who the hiring manager is, or if they put it on there, which I don't think they do anymore. I'll see who I know, because I almost always would have a 2-degree connection to them. That was so much easier. So tell them, look at the job listings first. Tell them a specific job, what your superpower and why you'd love, and then maybe even do the research for them. I see you're connected to so-and-so who also works in the marketing department, maybe your friends in actuarial. And do you think they would know somebody? So do some of that legwork by being specific and then doing a little bit of the reconnaissance first for them. Or here's another example of specificity. Just find 1 or 2 people in their network that you'd love an intro to. So again, this is the power of LinkedIn. You can go out and see who your colleagues are connected to. And let's say you're trying to get to somebody and you see, they have 15 mutual connections. Maybe go to your friend and say, hey, do you really know this person? Because sometimes we're connected to people we don't know all that well. And if you do, would you mind connecting me? To make it easier, here's a short little intro message. Don't make it more than 2 or 3 sentences that you could send, kind of introducing me to this person. So you have to be really specific. You have to be clear on what your superpower is and how you're going to help them. And you got to do the legwork for them. Make it so freaking easy for them to help you out. And then your chances will just skyrocket. Okay. So that's number 4, avoid holding it in. And then the last thing to avoid if you've just been laid off is not trying something new. And I will tell you that so many people that I've talked with before, and this usually takes time and space to come to the conclusion, realize that this time is an opportunity to shift. And I don't mean just a full-on 180-degree pivot, or I don't even, mean full-time or as your next gig, but what is something new you could try? Some examples would be, I often coach people to especially if you're in marketing, writing, design, even financial, try sites like Upwork or Fiverr, Fiverr. These are sites, you don't need a website. You can go out there and look at what are the types of things that people are freelancing or fractional working. A lot of companies now are doing this much more at the executive level. A company with 25 people in a startup cannot afford a chief strategy officer, but they might need a fractional chief strategy officer, or even, company I'm on the board for, we have a chief financial officer, but it's really a fractional job. It's not a full-time job. And so start to play around with, I think so often, especially if you're caught in the corporate world, you think, oh, well, that just means I'm going to become a consultant. And it's so binary. Like these are I'm, I got to put on my resume and I'm consult. But there's a lot of opportunity even just to fractionally work, meaning you come in, maybe not truly as a consultant, but as somebody that's doing a partial job for them. And it's a great way to earn money. It's a great way to test out a company. It's a great way to interview basically for a company without saying they're interviewing you. Because if you go in and kick ass, like there's a good chance if their company grows, they're going to try to grab you for more and more hours, if not full time. You could also volunteer. And what I love about that is it's not just noble. It's not just about, doing the right thing for somebody else. Volunteering can open up a network that you can't even imagine, because the people that are involved, the people on the boards, the people that volunteer, it just exposes you to a whole new group of people that may help lead you to what's next. Or just do work on something that you're passionate about. I have a former colleague and client of mine who was recently affected, but had over the last couple of years started sort of exploring and investing in programs to be a sex coach. And when I talked to her, she, instead of being sort of distraught about being laid off, she's like, oh, I guess that's where I need to focus more. But even if you haven't started something before, something that's on your heart, something that just be fun. I have a good friend that doesn't work there full time, but knows the people at our local flower shop, and she'll go work there, during Mother's Day and Valentine's Day, and she just loves it. She has a blast, and she's not worried about how's I going to look on my resume or what do people think. She just enjoys it, and she sees, new things and new experiences. So don't be afraid to go out and do something, even if it's like, okay, I was making $150,000 a year, and now I'm going to go work somewhere for $20 an hour. I'm going to go, watch kids or cut flowers, or I don't know, whatever it is. But if it is something that could lead to something else, maybe you've always thought about starting your own business. It's a great way to learn. Or maybe you want to go back and get your master gardeners and help with landscape design. These things could be little stepping stones that, one, get you out of the house and talking to people, make a little income, but also help you explore something that just might not be temporary, might lead to something bigger and better. So again, the 5 things that I really want you to think about are avoiding assuming the worst, not taking a breather, spending too much time on your resume, holding it in, and not trying something new. And at the end of the day, as I mentioned before, this probably didn't happen to you. It probably happened for you. And whether you realize that in 2 weeks or in a year or in 10 years, I guarantee that that's the case. So again, if this has been helpful for you, or if you know others that could use a little in the head and thinking about things differently, we'd absolutely love if you'd share this with them. You'll be a hero, a friend, and a helper. And we hope that you also check out some of these other episodes thank you, Rachel, for throwing those down in the show notes. And until next time, I hope you have a great day, and we'll see you back here real soon on the Because Work Doesn't Have to Suck podcast. Hey guys, it's Erin again. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. What we would love is a rating and review from you. And we say this all the time, and we get texts and emails from people all the time saying how much this podcast has impacted them or that they've shared with others. And we so appreciate it. But we want this podcast out to others. And the more reviews that we get, the higher our ranking, which means the more people see it, which means the better guests and the better production and money we can put into this thing for you. So if you can write a review from now until September 18th, so Friday, all you have to do is write that review on whatever podcast app you use. Google it if you don't know. and simply take a screenshot and send it to hello@beauthenticinc.com. That's hello at just the letter B, authenticinc.com. Shoot that our way, and we're going to put you into a drawing to spend an hour coaching with me. And I'm telling you, I rock your world and help you propel. So go do that rating and review now before you forget. Hey, it's Erin. Look, I'm not sure if you're a book kind of person, but if you are and you're looking for a self-development-y type book that isn't stuffy and snoozy, I sincerely think you'd love my book, You Do You-ish. I tossed aside the standard BS most nonfiction books dish up, and instead, I give you real, sometimes tough love coaching on how to think about getting the career you deserve without working harder. It'll reframe how you think about the concept of authenticity in the workplace. It'll be sure that you hear and rewrite your sucky songs and walk you through my humans framework, the 6 principles of strategic authenticity. Since it's been rolling now for over 2 years, and it has over 130 Amazon reviews and a 4.9 rating, I can say with complete sincerity, I really think you'd love it. You can buy a copy by searching You Do You-ish on Amazon or head to the show notes for a direct link.